Yeah, so I'm learning two languages. I'm mostly learning Arabic. Shadowing is something that I do. I think it's actually quite effective for
Yes.
improving the fluency of your tone, making yourself sound more natural. So important when you're learning a phrase or a new piece of vocabulary to have, the authentic audio. When you're learning a language, right, you're putting hundreds, thousands of hours of your life away, and it's super important to invest in the best available book or the best available resource or tool from the very, very beginning.
So hello, Stefan. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview with me. Um, so you are from Australia and you are currently learning Arabic. Can
Yes.
you tell us why you are currently learning this language?
Yeah, so I'm learning two languages. I'm mostly learning Arabic, also trying to focus a bit on French. The
Okay,
reason
cool.
I learn Arabic is I live in the Middle East. So,
Yeah.
you know, very practically speaking, it's what I need to be able to do my work, talk to colleagues, make friends, travel around independently. And it's a very challenging language. So I think I enjoy that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so you are currently living in Yemen. Uh, that's it.
Mm,
Working for an NGO.
correct.
And what made you move to Yemen? If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I work for a humanitarian organization. Yemen is unfortunately one of the world's most challenging crises. Uh, very, very famine vulnerable, uh, very cholera vulnerable as well. In 2024, it had the highest number of cholera cases in the entire world. And part
Okay.
of that is linked to the very, very poor access to fresh drinking water. And so the work I'm doing is contributing on a response to those problems,
Okay.
which have been really exacerbated by the conflict, right? Especially for people who are displaced. So that's why I'm in Yemen, and I came here via Lebanon and Syria and Iraq.
Okay. Very, very, very impressive. Very interesting. Yeah. Um. So that's what brought you to Yemen. You are working for an NGO, and that's what made you learning like Arabic. For how long have you
Mhm.
been in Arabic, living in an Arabic countries, and so learning the
Mhm.
language for how long?
I have been learning for I think now 5 years or 6 years,
Okay,
so I should
crazy.
be better. But quite a while now. And I only started when I went to Iraq. And when I was in Iraq, this is when
Okay,
I started to learn the language while I was in country. And
okay,
and of course it helps to be there.
okay, okay. Very interesting. And like, so you have been learning Arabic for like 5 to 6 years. And now, currently, like how many hours or minutes do you spend like learning this language per day, every day?
Mm. So I think mm, normally probably not a huge amount, I would say. In terms of like formal practice, normally it would
Yeah.
only be maybe 15, 20 minutes, right?
Okay.
And almost entirely, I would be doing one or two things. First of all, I would be revising flashcards,
Yeah.
uh, which I use Anki, say very commonly known system. And then second of all, I might read a book or a text.
Okay.
And I try to listen as well, maybe once a week, but that's about the extent of my formal learning.
Yes. Okay. Very cool. And which kind of yeah, I need to ask some other question to just set up the context. Um,
That's fine.
like, can you talk um a little bit about your like your journey regarding language learning? Like you speak very well French. We did our previous call in French, and you are fluent in French. I can say it because I'm French. Yeah, yeah, really. I mean it.
Thank
I really mean it. Like it's even a euphemism. Like you really speak very well French. And
That's,
so you have some experience with like language learning. And can you talk a little bit about your journey with Arabic? How did you started to learn it, and how your method
mm,
evolved through the
mm,
years? Yeah.
mm, mm, mm. No, that's a very good question. So I think sort of
Thank you.
probably what I've sort of settled on is, and actually in a way I've sort of done this like a few times because every time you switch Arabic country, you need to learn a different dialect. So it's a little bit like you're
Yeah.
learning a language again. So you sort of go through the process and you think about what is most efficient. And I think,
Okay. Yeah.
if I think about what I've settled on for the Yemeni dialect of Arabic is probably I will have a process of maybe 3 to 6 months where I will do two things in parallel. Read one or two books about the language to understand
Okay.
its setup. What are the interesting linguistic or grammatical features of the language which make it different from other systems. And in so we'll find a book or two about that, and then but won't really do the exercises. And then second of all, in parallel, we'll find a list of the most common vocabulary which is specific to that language or dialect, and
Okay.
and memorize that if it's 500 or 1,000 words. And then after sort of 3 to 6 months, we'll sort of pivot to a second phase, which is not so much about learning the dialects, but trying to integrate it into daily life as much as possible, so that you sort of keep at a steadily improving
Hmm.
pace, right? And so this is things like, TV and podcasts and making friends, right? To talk to people
Okay. Yeah.
in the language.
So
Yeah. And
would you
that's
say
of
that?
course the more enjoyable part, I would say.
Yeah. So would you say that in the second part of your process, you try to consume language like a native in a way? Yeah. Like if you were a
Yeah,
native.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. So you
100%. Yeah.
okay, interesting. And which which tools do you currently use? You talked to me. You told me about a bunch of tools. Can you tell us about those?
Mm. So I have, let me sort of make a quick little list here. In
Perfect.
terms of tools I use, uh, things that I use or have used would be, I think, uh, four things. I've
Yeah.
tried Migaku. That's
Okay.
sort of this platform for trying to use you take vocabulary and clips from Netflix shows and YouTube and so on. And I sort of gave up on that at a point because it was a bit too complicated. So that's
Okay.
one
Yeah.
thing that I sort of try to use. One that
Yes.
I do use occasionally still is language learning with Netflix, which is specifically for YouTube, and
Yeah.
and that is good. Actually, what I like most about language learning with Netflix is it has this function where uh you basically have a word bank, uh
Yeah.
which captures all of the words that you do know,
Mhm.
and uh when you're watching a video, you can see in, I forget which color it is, but in green will show all of the
Yeah.
words in a sentence which you already know, and
Yes.
in white or purple will be the one that you don't know. And that way you look at it immediately and you
Yeah.
can figure out where your brain should focus a little bit on learning. And you see if
Yes.
you can figure out the additional word from the context, or if you need to like add it to your list of things to
Mhm.
learn. And I find that's actually quite an effective way to focus on growing your vocabulary and
Yes.
improving it, picking up in context
Yes, I definitely
building.
I will share a screenshot from Language Learning Vector because I also use it
Oh, good.
sometimes. So people will be able
Mm,
to really understand what you mean. It's a very
mm.
very cool tool. Yeah.
It is. It is. No, it's impressive. But for Arabic is not so. It's Arabic is a hard language to make work for this kind of thing.
Yes.
I think with
Okay.
Spanish and French, it's probably a bit more developed.
Yeah. Yeah. I use it with English. It works well, but I guess yeah, with Arabic it might be there might be some sometimes where it's not satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um.
It's the dialects. That's kind of the issue. You're forcing all of the dialects, which are a bit like different languages, into a single system, which is the formal Arabic. And sometimes it works,
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. Is there other tool? Mega cool language.
Yeah, and then other tools would be, well, Anki, right? Which I guess we'll
Yeah.
probably talk about in a second, and that's I think really fundamental.
Yeah.
And I think what I enjoyed most. And then fourth, in terms of tools, it's not so much a piece of software, but shadowing is something that I do
Okay.
occasionally with like podcasts. I will, and then this one I only learned in the past year or two, but I think it's actually quite effective for
Yes.
improving the fluency of your tone and the making yourself sound more natural. So
Okay.
this is where you listen to a podcast or a TV show, and you repeat in real time whatever you are hearing or seeing written down in front of you.
Yeah, I heard shadowing is very efficient, but it requires, in my opinion, a lot of motivation to do it, like to pronounce each time.
It does
Um,
require a bit of effort. Yeah.
like you say you do it real time. Like, does it mean that you listen to the podcast and you speak, like you repeat at the same time what they are saying? Like, how do you do concretely? How do you do that? This shadowing?
So it depends a little bit on uh, in Arabic, I try to do it, but it's quite hard. In French, I can do it, right? This is how I worked a bit on my French. And
Okay.
if it's like a very formal podcast, like if it's listening to the news or like Hugo Decrypt or something like this,
Yeah.
then it's actually you can put it at like normal speed and you listen and talk along, and that's good in
Okay.
a way because it teaches you to speak proper French rather than lazy French. But what is
Interesting.
much harder is if you're listening to something like Floodcast, which is quite
Mm.
chaotic, right? And
Yeah.
very, very informal. Then it's
Yeah.
maybe best case scenario, I could put it on like 75% speed and then I try
Mm.
to talk along with it.
Okay, so you don't pause the video. You really try to follow along.
No, 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 no. Yeah. And if you lose track, then you just pick it up in 10 seconds. And it's sort of,
Okay.
I mean, it's difficult to always keep pace.
Okay,
But
interesting.
it's more about, I think it's less about like practicing. I think it's not so much about really accent and learning vocabulary. For me, I think it's a little bit about getting your mouth used to warmed up and sort of into the right,
Okay, yeah.
used to making the right kinds of noise at the right speed with the right tone.
Okay, I see. So it's really like
Mm.
pairing your voice with like a model, like like if you were
Mm.
for example when you run, when
Mm.
you one trick that is quite efficient is to have someone that is a little bit faster than you, and so you run with him, and
Mm.
it forces
Mm.
you to run a little bit faster. Um, and this is very
Oh, exactly,
efficient. Yeah.
exactly.
It's a little bit the same, I
Mm.
think, with shadowing the way you do it. Yeah.
And I think also probably for forcing you to avoid the kinds of anglicisms or
Mhm.
English phrasing that I would normally put in my language, right? You know, obviously when you talk
Mm.
in French, the flow is quite different, right? So you force yourself to adapt to the flow and the right intonation.
This is true. This is very interesting because I have some like in English, I don't have that much occasion to practice my oral expression, and doing that will really help me to have a more natural English. I should do it. I will definitely try to do it, but it seems to be like
Your
quite
English is
tiring.
very good.
Yeah, thank you.
It is a bit tiring, yeah.
Yeah. And like for how long do you do it when you do it? Like, do you do it for like 10 minutes, or are you able to do it for
Oh,
1 hour?
maybe like 5 or 10 minutes, right? If I'm
Okay.
sort of in the middle of some activity or I'm a bit tired. Um, but normally I try to, you know, if I'm doing something like if I'm listening to a podcast, I would never do that. Not while I'm multitasking on anything else, right? I would always be doing that while I'm like brushing my teeth or going on a walk, right?
Mm.
But probably the one you could probably do it for longer periods, right? If you're going on a walk somewhere, right? To like half an hour, then you could do like shadowing, and you will be a bit tired by the end, but you could pull it off.
Okay, yeah.
Or what I was trying most recently on the holiday was playing basketball by myself while listening to podcasts.
Okay,
That
interesting.
also
Interesting.
works.
I will try to do it on my next walk. Um, Very
Mm,
cool. So let's jump into the serious things. Could you share your
mm,
screens and show us a little bit your how your Anki decks are set up?
absolutely. I will share my screen, and I'm going to apologize because I'm going to show you the uh, web version, which is a little bit chaotic.
Okay, no
Uh,
problem.
a Yeah. So you can see here
Yeah.
all of the decks that I am working on, and
Okay, great.
it's the way you can see it, it's not very well organized because they're all looped under each other. Um,
Okay, great.
but yeah, maybe if you want, I can talk through a little bit the logic or the structure of what I have set up.
Yeah, yeah, do that. Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting.
So obviously for uh it's not going to show very easily here because I've put all of these like random decks together. It's a little bit Frankensteinish.
Okay, yeah.
Um, but normally I'll sort of like group it by language, right? And then I'll have French and then the different kinds of French decks that I've worked on, and then like Yemeni Arabic and the different kinds of Yemeni Arabic things that I've worked on.
Mm,
Um, uh, but what I can comment on maybe is how I found some of these decks, or how I put together some of this material, especially for the Arabic, which is quite a difficult. It's basically impossible to find pre-made decks, right?
okay, yeah.
On Anki. Um, but obviously, one source that I've used quite extensively is language learning with Netflix, right?
Okay, yeah.
There's a function to export your saved words
Yeah.
in .csv, and then you upload it again according to a template that someone has created on some Anki web forum into Anki, and then it shows in a relatively straightforward way. Let me see if I
Okay, yeah.
can show you an example.
Yeah, top.
No, that's the wrong one. Anyway, I'll get back to that type later, which is your type.
Yeah, no
Um,
problem.
another source that I've done is I paid someone using Fiverr to take the US Foreign Service example dialogues and convert it
Yeah.
into uh, text. So one of the best free resources for especially very obscure dialects and languages is Gloss. Let me see if I can increase this. No, I cannot. Is is Gloss, GOLSS, and it has these MP3s and PDFs, and so you can send that to someone who will turn that into an Anki deck for you, right?
Okay, yeah.
Um, and that is great for Yemeni Arabic.
Okay,
Oh
so
yeah, here
so
we
you
go.
you convert like files, like a PDF, like so with a lot of text, you convert it into flashcards. Okay, yeah.
Exactly. So here's an example. Yeah, it's sort of the Arabic with the audio,
Okay,
and I
cool.
think the audio was always the most important part. I always try to find it with audio. So
Okay,
that's
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
a
yeah.
second way of finding cards. Obviously, uh, I've just also just going throughout life in conversation, I will make notes of words that I
Okay,
pick up,
yeah.
and then I will often pay someone to just record it and put it into an MP3 file.
Okay, yeah.
Uh, so I've done that in Syria and also here.
Okay,
Uh,
yeah.
Lingualism, they have very good pre-made Anki decks, which are very high quality, and I think better than what you can find freely available
Mm,
on the Anki website.
okay, yeah.
Um, and yeah, and
Can
also
you
these ones are
show?
from one of my former teachers. He would make them
Okay,
after every lesson. He would send me
okay,
Anki cards, which is fantastic.
okay. Very cool. Can you show a little bit like
Mm.
how the flashcards from lingualism are structured?
Let me find that. Okay.
Big button.
Oof.
Okay.
This is not. helping you. Yeah. Okay. There we go. There we go. Okay. So there you go. You see a little bit.
Okay. So
Yeah,
you
you've
have
got
like
the
the word,
words, the
the
translation,
translation,
the
and the
audio,
audio. And you have the
example sentence.
okay with the context, with some context to okay to help you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Very classic. Okay, very
Mm.
cool. Okay. Now I would love you to show us like the YouTube Anki
Of
deck.
course, of course. So if I use this one on my phone, actually, it looks very good, right? Here it's probably
Yeah.
going to look a bit strange, but I promise you on my phone, it looks fantastic. Okay,
Okay.
let me see now.
I didn't.
Here we
Okay,
go.
so yeah, I did not know it was looking like that. So long story short, with a friend, I'm building a converter that converts YouTube video into Anki deck like this one, and this is one of the Anki deck
Mm,
we did for Stefan.
mm,
But it's buggy on this interface. But recently we did an update in terms of design, and now it should work better on this type of interface on Anki Web. But yeah, at least you can
mm,
see the mechanic of the deck.
mm, yeah. And actually, you can see what I've done here is what I did was I took the version of the deck that you gave and I converted it so that you show the English first, and then I have to
Mm.
translate it back into Arabic. So what I have
Okay, great.
is I have both versions right now in the deck.
Okay,
And yeah, I mean you can see it. Mm,
okay,
it- yeah. So it plays here muted, so I can't hear what is being said. I can see the English translation, and I had to come up with the Arabic and
okay.
then and see if I'm correct. Mm.
Also, you can hear the sentence, and with the addition of the subtitle in English, you can figure out like the words in Arabic and try to understand it if I understand well. Maybe it was not clear.
Uh, 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 yeah. So you have the two versions. You have one
Mm.
version which would be, let me, okay. So this is English into Arabic.
Yeah.
I can see the video, but I cannot hear her talking.
Mm.
And I can
Oh,
see the English,
oh,
and
you
then
cannot
I have
hear
to
her talking.
convert it
Okay.
into Arabic. Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
And then
Very
I do
interesting.
show answer. If I got it right, I click good. And then, yeah, actually all of these are English into Arabic, but yeah, because I've already done the Arabic into English versions.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be what you'd expect, right? Which is, in that case, it shows automatically the audio and it gives you
Yeah.
the Arabic text. No, sorry, I take that back. It just plays the audio, right? And it doesn't give you the text and actually translate it back into
Okay, great.
back into English.
Very, very
Mm,
interesting. So you really did custom our decks to really
mm,
make your learning even more efficient. That's
mm,
very
mm,
impressive. I'm really happy seeing that. And just one question
mm,
quickly for our users, our
mm,
listeners. What motivated you to
mm.
use this kind of deck?
Ah, oh, really, you mean like YouTube Anki in general? Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think two reasons. Number one, for me, it's so important when you're learning a phrase or a new piece of vocabulary to have, the authentic audio
Hmm.
uh, from the very beginning so that you are learning words correctly. Otherwise,
Okay.
it's so difficult to sound well enough that you can be understood and have a conversation with people. And second of all, I think these videos are incredibly important because otherwise you're reliant quite a lot for your audio resources on resources which are typically 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. In the case of Yemeni Arabic,
Okay.
60, 70 years old, right? Like really, really
Okay.
old written and audio resources. And they're actually pretty different from, how people speak today. And when you get
Mm.
YouTube videos, which are put out by some, Yemeni influencer, it's,
Hmm.
you can be sure that you're actually talking how you're likely to hear people talking in the street. And when you have a conversation with a friend in terms of, what is the latest vocabulary which is in, right? Or even the topics which people talk about, right?
Yeah.
Uh, the conversations, the kinds of topics that you see cropping up in a YouTube video, they're more likely to be very topical, right? Things that I would actually talk about if I were in the office.
Okay. Yeah. Very interesting. So if you want to try out this kind of deck to the listeners, you can you can read the description. I will explain how to get this kind of decks. So that's very interesting. The time is flying. One last question before quitting you. It's like two questions. If you had one advice to give to your former self, starting to learn a language, what would be the advice? And the second question will be just if people want to contact you, how can they contact you? Yeah.
Mm-mm. I'll do the easy one first. Contact
Yeah, of course.
LinkedIn. That'd be fine.
LinkedIn. Okay.
And then in terms of one piece of advice, I'm trying to think about sort of how I've wasted the most time in the past, right? Or
Yeah.
most inefficient things that I've done in the past. I would say probably not being, especially sort of when I initially started learning languages, not being willing to sort of spend the money to sort of have very good resources from the start. I think here's a good example. Here's a good opportunity to pay for a subscription to what I think is an incredibly useful tool. But I mean, you know, when you're learning a language, right, you're putting hundreds, thousands of hours of your life away. And I think, you know, to invest in the best available book or the best available resource or tool from the very, very beginning, I think is super important to make sure that I think it always comes with a very good payoff versus trying to do things in a cheap way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, very good language learning materials makes you win so much time. So it's really worth the money you put in. Yeah, okay. That was really awesome. I'm really happy about this interview. I can just thank you a lot. You don't have a lot of time, so really thank you for taking this precious time.
No, thank you so much for your hard work on this. It's a super interesting tool. I'm super excited that you got it finally launched. I remember when I saw it on Reddit, I think that was I was very excited to hear about the idea. So I hope it will blossom into something very well known and commonly recognized.
Thanks a lot. So again, if you want to check our conversion system, you can check it in the description. Thank you very much again, Stefan, and I wish you a very good day.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.